G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. Yesterday I took my garbage all away. I took it to the deep water dump, where in that I encountered my first fire of this season. And whereas the fire extinguisher did a bit of work, the sticker was overlooked. Yesterday was a Saturday, so the deep water dump was open from 1 PM to 3 PM. Owing to COVID regulations, I had to sign in, and after I signed in, as I was emptying my wheelie bin, I watched a fairly new white Land Cruiser 4-wheel drive 4-door diesel ute, probably $80,000 to $100,000 worth of turbocharged modernness, loaded up with fencing wire, old rusty rabbit wire, all in a big bundle on the back of it. He signed in, he drove over to the metalwork dump, because the dump's segregated into various species of rubbish. He backed up towards the dump. As I was just about to load my wheelie bin back onto the trailer, I watched this young fella running over to the dump guardian, the council employed attendant who opens the gates and shuts them again. And he makes sure nobody scavenges anything, because Blue Steel has a contract on that. And this young fella, I've seen him around a few times, obviously a local, otherwise he wouldn't be at the deep water dump with a ute load of used fencing. I hear him ask the gate guard, "Have you got a fire extinguisher?" Fire extinguisher? What for? I turn around, I have a look, and here's his $80,000 or $100,000 car, and it's got white smoke billowing out from underneath. Gate guard says, "No, I haven't," and they both run straight back to the expensive car that's apparently on fire. Neither one of them thought of asking the hillbilly loading the wheelie bin. "Hello, you've come to hear the story, have you?" Come on. Oh, you want to eat it, but the wind's got you spooked. Okay. That's a lovely little cameo. Thank you for that. We'll go on with the story now. So shit, I thought. Good thing I've got a sign on the car that lets people know I got an extinguisher on board. And because modern cars are all full of fuel and they have their fuel lines running underneath them and they've got lots of electricity in them as well, my first thought was to grab the 1 kilogram 1A10BE, which is good for wood, paper, fabric, carpet, flammable liquid and electrical equipment. So I took it out of the box and I pulled the plastic safety lanyard off it, and I went over and I stood beside the burning or smoking vehicle where the dump attendant was lying down on the ground under one side reaching in with his bare hands, and the owner was lying down on the driver's side also reaching in with his bare hands. So as a matter of form, I asked them what was burning, and they said dried grass, as they were pulling it out from under. So I put the chub on the ground where they would see it if they got chased out from underneath the car, and they could use it if they had to. But I think I recall these things being about $50 a pop, and you only get to use them the once. And because they had a grass fire, I returned to the scene of the fire with what's got to be a 40-year-old bushfire council 16-litre backpack, and I asked them if they would prefer to use water instead of the carbon dioxide and the dry powder. So I don't know if you can see it, but that's about the level of the water down there where the shadow of my finger is. And normally I would have this thing filled up to about there, because otherwise it'll spill in your car. So the old technology, obsolete firefighting backpack has probably used 4 or 5 litres. And from the sound of it, about the first 2 litres that went in there turned directly to steam, because that's how hot the grass was, that's how hot the surrounding metal was. Reconstructing the incident, my guess is that this fella has driven over long dry grass to get up to the fence. That's pumped a whole lot of grass into the various nooks and crannies underneath the vehicle where the hot exhaust is coming out of his turbocharger. He's switched off. There wasn't quite enough heat in the metal to get the grass going at that point. He's loaded on the wire, and then he set sail to get to the dump. He's been going up the highway at 100 kilometres an hour, and there's been sufficient cold air moving through the matrix of packed dry grass around his red hot exhaust pipe that the temperature has stayed down below that of spontaneous combustion while he's been on the dirt road leading in from the bitumen to the dump, and while he's been signing into the COVID system. You know, I used a pen and paper, and they've got one of those Q code square barcode things there. So then he's toddled over to the scrap metal dump, and there when he stopped and there's no more cooling airflow and the engine switched off, so there's not even any airflow from the cooling fans, that's when the heat from the exhaust has seeped into the bone dry grass that's packed up there, and that's when he's got his smoke. So, to paraphrase Scott Purdue from Flywire Channel, and go and have a look at that, this young fella's bag of luck turned out to be filled full of my bag of clues. Because as I said to the fella afterwards, in 1994 I was first given a firefighting backpack by the Deepwater Brigade when my property here was on the edge of a fire ground. And a couple of weeks later, driving to town, I happened to have the backpack on the back of my ute, and there was a fire in the paddock beside the road, and I realised I've got a backpack. I can go over there and do something straight away. And therefore, thus and because we did. Me and my son, who was about 5 at the time. And since then, this is the 4th vehicle of mine which I have permanently carried at least 12 litres in a 16-litre firefighting backpack, as well as something high-tech for dealing with electrical fires and fuel fires. So in 27 years, yesterday was the first time I actually had to pull the backpack out and use it in earnest against a spontaneous fire that just happened to be there in front of me, and I was at the right place at the right time with the right equipment ready to assist. And as I said to Scott Purdue in the comments column, young fella might have been well raised, but he wasn't raised by somebody who taught him to check under his expensive diesel to see if there was dry grass around his exhaust before setting out on the highway. He wasn't raised by anybody who taught him to carry a fire extinguisher. On the cosmic scoreboard effect, even if we're raised not knowing the stuff that we need to know, we sort of get free hits. So his luck bag included my clue bag, and how the various fortuitous timings were arranged so that I was there at the dump when he was there with his fire, able to contribute a fire extinguisher. That's one of the great mysteries of the God theory. I don't know how that's organised, but it apparently is organised. Otherwise, his $100,000 four-wheel drive would be a smoking wreck that he'd already driven to the dump before it burnt itself. So there you go, and now you know. And when I was making my video last week about humanity playing to lose and me being worried about the fire danger in the landscape right now, when a week ago everything was all still full of mud puddles, I wasn't actually bloody wrong, because within 7 days of making the movie, my fire extinguisher was at work putting out somebody else's car. See, I told you it was a good story, worth hanging around for. Hey. Yes, all right. You can have another bicky. Come on. Oh, yes. There we go. And now you know. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao.